manje ngizabe ukuthi liviki leli lapho khona kugujwa khona emasuku internationally lomuhla as it is the Wednesday the 14th of June. The World Donor Day is being celebrated worldwide cishe nje umhlaba wonke kubuka ke noma kubonga acts of selflessness and voluntary blood donors lapha emhlabeni just to celebrate humanity kakhulu. Kanti ke sicubulo salonyaka sibuka kona ke ekutheni bantu noma siyabakhuthaza ekutheni bantu baphume ba donate ingadi sithi ke give blood, give plasma, share life, share often. Qinisekisa nje ekutheni uma ngabe unikela ngengadi uyakhona ukuthi usave impilo yalomunye umuntu. Itheme lena ke le highlighter the importance of giving blood or blood plasma regularly to create a safe and sustainable supply of blood and blood products that can be always available. Njengalapha ke sathi ukuthi eVendlangwane sinawo blood banks la hlukene lapho khona sikhuthathwa singamaswati ukuthi sihambe siyawudonate ingadi regularly ekutheni le supply kube ngile Kusile noma ngabe ke kuvela timo letiphuthumako noma ke kunebantu labangena emigwaqweni emgwaqo khaza ukuthi baluza yona ingadi nalabo ke labagula banetifo nje letifana nabo anemia bakhona ukuthi basitakale. So ke lelo celebrate all over the world so that all patients in need can receive timely life-saving treatment. In the context of Eswatini, what is the situational status of blood donation? We'll hear from medical doctor, Dr. Waweru Mabuza. Do we have adequate or rather sufficient blood in our banks for emergencies, as well as what kind of life-threatening conditions require blood donation, as well as surgeries that require blood donation? The World Health Organization Just join Dr. Waweru Mabuza. Lomhla 7 World Blood Donor Day.
All right, hlela nathi siyabuya khona manje 5 minutes after 6 siwe netindzaba tefuthi Eswatini. Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eVeni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letiya ngaleso sikhathi tindzaba letide magama laqosheme letitsembekile letitsinza tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni
kusukela kutepolitiki tetemphilo tekulima tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhathi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letiqhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba loutiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Muhla ngiphindze ngikuvusele ngikwamukele nasehlelweni Kusile Breakfast Show sikuphe nathi tindzaba talapha ekhaya lomhla ekseni. Timphunga setitfumise litiko letemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana ngemtsetfo losakhankhanywa i-Measurements Unit and Measurement Standards Bill njengoba ke utawulisita live ekucinisekiseni ukuthi emaswati yatsengiselwa tintfo ngesikali ke nemali lengiyo. Timphunga betikhuluma ngesikhathi lelitiko lihlangene netimphunga kudzingidza lo mtsetfo.
Litiko letemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana libambisene nelikomiti lelibuka kusebenta kwaleli tiko etimphungeni liholwa imphunga Alberto Samuels njengasihlalo libambe umhlangano netimphunga kubuka tidzingidze ngesicephu umtsetfo lobuka kucinisekisa kutsi imphahla letsengiselwa sive ikaleke kahle yini i-Measurements Unit and Measurement Standards Bill wemnyaka wa 2020. Indvuna yalelitiko Mancoba Khumalo yetfulile timphunga tincomo tendlu yabayesikhulu ngalo mtsetfo.
Page S28 lapho mkhatsi wakhe ibhalwe part 3 la le headline chair ibhalwe ukuthi National Metrology Institute of Eswatini. I-proposal noma ke i-decision le yaphuma ngale House of Assembly kwaba ukuthi sikususe lo sizathu sakhona kwaba ukuthi vele besakha i-parastatal uma ufuza nje kwi-parastatal letaba neboard ibe ne-management yayo kwabukeka ukuthi lama parastatal ungathi semaningi kakhulu uhulumende uyahluleka nalokhu kwa-sustain yini ma-department edingo.
Timbonga tibutile taphathisa kulo tiko letemabhizinisi.
Lo competition commission ngulapho uvele mbambamba sibika ngifuna kwathi kahle ifunction yakhe in relationship kunalo kulomthetho ngoba angisengambona avela kahle lo competition commission.
Uthi kuba ngubani kuba ngilomnikati wale business lo lokufuna aboshwe noma kuba ngileso sisebenzi nje ngoba ngisophela le mhlambe lesisente lomdlalo lo nje ngiyatibutela nje
akhanza imitha nawukala incane kepha lengane iphethe neyayinze kakhulu sengibekisa nje ngendlela esidojwa ngayo sine nje siyavunula siye sike mayiya ukhanze kuncane lesandla kanje kepha nawufaka le mitha nasibuka le yena usakhanza ugabagaba vele siyadojwa ukuthi sekutawubuyela yini ume ngemumo kulolo hlango silolo.
Timbonga tiphindze tabuka nalomunye futhi umtsetfo lotawucinisekisa kutsi tonke tinkampani tihambisana nawo lo mtsetfo we-Measurements Unit lowatiwa ngele-Legal Metrology Bill wemnyaka wa 2020. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika samkeliswe khoza nginasimuva Shongwe eParliament.
Kanzike indvuna yetemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana Mancoba Khumalo ithi umtsetfo losakhankhanywa i-Technical Regulatory and Quality Infrastructure Bill utawulisita ke live kulandzelela tekutsengiselana nemazinga emikhicito yelive. Indvuna bekhuluma ngesikhatsi lelitiko lihlangene netimphunga kubuka lo mtsetfo.
Litiko letemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana ngakulokunye lichubeke nemhlangano netimphunga labuka sicephu ngesicephu semtsetfo losakhankanywa lotawucinisekisa kutsi tinkampani telive tikhicita imphahla lebamba emazinga esifundza nalawo emhlaba lowatiwa ngele-Technical Regulatory and Quality Infrastructure Bill wemnyaka wa 2020. Indvuna yetemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana Mancoba Khumalo yetfule inhloso lenkulu yalo mtsetfo nekuthi live litawuzuza ngakuphi uma lo mtsetfo sowucalile usebenta.
Nekuthi sitabo wa-reviewa kanjani nekuthi ke mhlawumbe i-market surveillance sitawuyenda njani buka lokho ukuthi usalandzelele kahle lo mtsetfo chairperson bese seyikhuluma ke ukuthi kunama-special procedures kwenta ama-regulations akhona njengoba kulungele imithetho. Then part 4 ubona ukhuluma nje ukuthi kutawuba ne-unit etawupromotha equality ukuthi kutawuba ne-national accreditation focal point. Lapha ke kaSADC kune-accreditation board yesihola under libizwa nga-SADCAS niyo ke letawu-accredita lo msebenzi wethu bangiswasa la kaNgwane.
Timbonga tibese tiyawuphasisa lo mtsetfo taphasisa naloyo lobukete emazinga i-Standards and Quality Bill wemnyaka wa 2020. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika samkeliswe khoza nginasimuva Shongwe eParliament.
Indvuna yetemidlalo emasiko netindzaba tebantfu labasha Harris Bulunga ithi emasiko nemculo wemakwala amakhulu i-choral unemandla ekubeka live ezingeni lelisetulu kutemculo nemasiko. Indvuna beyikhuluma ngesikhatsi isukumisa umchudzelwano wemakhono nemculo lowatiwa ngelenjilonjilo.
Indvuna yetemidlalo emasiko netindzaba tebantfu labasha Harris Bulunga seyisukumise ngalokusemtsetfweni ingcungcuthela yemchudzelwano walonyaka wetemasiko emakhono nemculo ikakhulukati loyo we-choral Injilonjilo Arts and Culture Festival.
Our quest as a ministry is to ensure that music remains a key component of our cultural preservation and maintain our history. The prescribed music for the 2023 Njilo Arts and Cultures Festival and going forward will therefore depict the nation's rich cultural heritage, our landmarks, and our beautiful land. This aligns with our mandate as a ministry, which is to recognize and celebrate regional histories and cultures in which the competition's composition should embrace.
Umphathi wenhlangano yemasiko yeSwatini National Council of Arts and Culture Stendile Dlamini uthi sesikhathi sekuthi live laseSwatini salisebenzisa umculo kuthuthukisa emasiko elive.
Let us celebrate our local compositions. Let us celebrate individuals that have excelled in this sector, the choral music. But more than anything else, let us be seen to be celebrating us as a country and as a nation.
Umcondzisi wenhlangano yemculo wechoral lapha eVen Mathokoza Sibiya uchaza inhloso lenkulu yalomcuzelwano.
We want to occupy the youth with meaningful play through talent searches and festivals and keep them from wrong habits. We also want to discover new young raw talent, develop it, encourage it, and reward it.
Lo mcuzelwano wanjilonjilo utawubanjwa ngempelasonto yamhla ti-18 enyangeni yeNgci. Etindzabeni yeSwatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza nginasimuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Lochumanisa libandla lelikhetfo kanye neminceleti inkhundla Mbonisi Bhembe usileli bandla litfole ticelo tekutsi lifanele lule emalanga ekubhalisela likhetfo lakuleli kungasabi ngulanga lalamuhla ngolesithathu. Bhembe uthi-ke noma leticelo tifikile ehhovisi kodwa akusethe sinqumo lesithethwe ngaleticelo. Ngalesibili entsambama emalayini ebantfu labe babhalisela likhetfo abonakele akhulile etindzaweni tekubhalisela edolobheni eMbabane. Kanti-ke Bhembe ukhutsate eMaswati ukuthi akachubeke abhalise ngetinkhani angaze avaleleke ngephandle agcine angakakhoni ukukhetha.
Tinombolo ukuthi kasikafiki ku-625 mangabe singakefiki akusho lokho ukuthi angete sakhona kuwenda lo msebenzi welukhetfo ngani nobe ngabe balishumi nje kuphela lababhalisile labo basuke sebashito ukuthi sesiya elukhethweni timiso telikhetfo tithi bantfu labatabe babhalisile ngaleso sikhathi akube ngibo labatawuhamba bawungenela lukhetfo kuteke i-validation lesiyaye siyibone lekhomba ukuthi engcenye nasi ku percentage nobe linani lelitsite lebantfu ekhulwini sengikhona ke sitawuthi lukhetfo lungilo libandla litemukele imibono neticelo ukuthi ungathi lesikhathi singalulwa babeka ke bantu tizathu tabo letehlukahlukene libandla ke lelibuke indzaba telikhetfo lisengakaze liphumele ngaphandle egumeni kutosatisa sisive ukuthi sinqumo sithini lekumile nyalo ngiko ukuthi umhla ka14 June ngikhona lapho khona kutawuvalwa khona kubhalisa sibhalisele likhetfo kasihlale ke silinzile nobe kasihlale singemaswati sigijime siya etikhetfwe etindzaweni tekubhalisa lapho khona lo sengakabhalisi siyacela lokuthi asukume aye khona kunetindzawo ke letinye lotikhanza ukuthi tindzaweni lapho khona kukhanya khona letinye futhi ukhanza ukuthi tisetindzaweni lapho kusheshe khona kube nelitfundi khona tetawuvalwa ke leto tindzawo letinelitfundi nga5 kanti leti tawukhanza ukuthi kuyakhanya titawuchubeka tona kuze kushaye insimbi yesithupha kanti nangabe bantfu basolo bakhona sitawetama lokuthi bagcine babhalisile bonke kuleso sikhungo loso ngoba libandla lifisile kuletha umsebenzi kusosive.
Libandla lelingamele tekuchumana kuleli Eswatini Communications Commission selinikelele litiko letekwatisa nekuchumana luhlangothi lwaka Digital Terrestrial Television Network nemishini ngeletawusita ukuthi kwenyuke lizinga lekusakata kuleli. Lemishini yetfulwe ngumphathi welibandla letekuchumana Mvila Wempi Dlamini.
Ngenhloso ekuqinisekisa ukuthi tekusakata kuleli tibamba lizinga lemhlaba nekuthi imishini lesebenziswako ingulephilile njalo njalo lelibandla ke libuke tidzingo telitiko letekwatisa ehlongothini lwekusakata laseke linikela ngalokuthi idzingo letiphuthumako. Leli bandla ke libe lihamba nemalunga asetiko alayelwe kusebenta kwaloke loluhlangothi lwaka-DTT. Umphathi welibandla letekuchumana Mvela Wembidlamini uthi batimisele kubambisa litiko kuteke kuthuthuke tekuchumana netekusakata kuleli.
Tinkinga tinyenti ta-DTT kepha-ke sibukele tingathi tona tisheshisa sathi cha lokhu ngathi vele se-critical kakhulu asicale ngako kubambisa uhulumende ikakhulu into njengema-UPS sithenge-ke ama-UPS lasiphohlongo ukuthi asibambise PS sathenga-ke nalo kuthiwa i-30 kVA for steki sathenga-ke ne-generator naye yalevelako nje kunasesithombe nkulu kakhulu besingento esayiletha lapha nje.
Mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko letekwatisa phesheya Dube ubonge kakhulu wathi vele le mishini beyisidzingo.
Siswele amagama ekubonga on behalf of my minister Ingosatana ne-ministry yonke ngalesipho lenithelo mhlanjena nasipha sona. Akusimala mangakhe nike nasibita few months ago lapho khona nasipha equipment worth about 1.2 million ama-camera ka-TV. Lo mhla sesithanza futhi sibuyile sitoyemukela sipho lesinye lesikhulu kangaka. Sithi on behalf of the ministry sicela ukuthi bongela kakhulu kwanze nalapho nithethe khona.
Dube-ke ukuthi basebhekene nensayeyaye kwebiwa kwale mishini lecekela phansi idona-ke tekusakata eveni etindzabeni tanamuhla ngengiyeni Msibi kunaphathizwe Msibi eMbabane.
Tibane temgwaco emangwaneni setiyasebenta. Mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko lemisebenti lemikhulu nekutfutsa Thulani Mkhaliphi uthulumende kumdulele kuvusa letibane kabusha njengoba-ke setinebuchwephesha lobusha lobusebentisiwe.
Ngemuva kwesikhathi lesingaba iminyaka lemibili tibane temgwaco tingasebenti lamangwaneni eMbabane kutaba-ke tindzaba letimnanzi kubashayeli nebasebentisi bemgwaco ukuthi letibane setiyasebenta tisebenta kahle futhi. Lesinye-ke setizatfu lesente ukuthi letibane tingasebenti isikhathi lesidze kangaka kutsi bekusolo kwebiwa tintsambo telithusi netintsambo letenta kutsi tona-ke letibane tisebente kahle. Sikhulumise mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko letemisebenti lemkhulu nekuthutsa Thulani Mkhaliphi kuva kutsi ingabe batawucinisekisa njani manje kutsi letibane katijabhalateki kulabo bebatijabhalata njengoba sesikhathi lesidze tingasebenti.
Siteke the turnaround mhlawumbe asesiyofuna itechnology lenye yebo kona iyasidulela le technology lesinayo la yalala khona nyalo mhlawumbe kutaba kuphunyanyana ke lokuthi kwendele levandalism but siyake sive lokuthi le mpahla ayinakekele ngoba le mpahla lena vele yesive sonke naloku kuyabuyisela kudulile kusibuyisela emva kakhulu ngabe senda letinye tinto egiyani.
Mkhaliphi-ke ucele sive ukuthi sitiphatse kahle letibane sitihloniphe wacala nabasebentisi bemgwaco ukuthi babeketelelane-ke emgwacweni. Uthite-ke kuselihlelweni lwabo ukuthi lolu hlelo lolusha lwebuchwephesha buye nakulamanye emadolobha ekokhulati kuto-ke tibane temgwaco. Etindzabeni kubeka Giyani Msibi Shemwe sisemangwaneni.
Professor welive laseKenya lodvume ngekukhuluma tindzaba telibumbano kubantfu base-Afrika kanye netemlandvo i-Pan-Africanist scholar Patrick Lumumba ukhutsata labagcina emabhuku etimali kuleli kutsi ababuke ematfuba lakhona evenikati lase-Afrika kucabanga kwabo kungagcili kuleli nje kuphela. Professor Lumumba bekakatsi yakhuluma emhlanganweni weminyaka welibandla labagcina emabhuku etimali kuleli i-Eswatini Institute of Accountants lapho kuphindze kwaphothula nebafundzi labagcina emabhuku etimali ema-accountants.
Professor Patrick Lumumba enkulumeni yakhe utsinze tindzaba letinyenti letihlukahlukene lokufaka ekhatsi tepolitiki, temfundo, temtsetfo, tenkolo kubala kulokunye. Inhlangano labagcina emabhuku etimali kuleli i-Eswatini Institute of Accountants bekatsi mmemele kuleli kutsi akhulume ngephansi kwesihloko lesithi kucinisa kulandzelwa kwemigomo netimiso tebuholi ukuthi umnotho utfutfuke ukhonse kube nekutfula nebulungiso ya-Afrika.
If you look at the ethics that we teach in the accountancy profession, are they rooted in the culture of Eswatini? When we teach ethics to the lawyers, are they rooted in the culture of Eswatini? No, they are not. So you accountants of Eswatini, go out into the world and do the impossible. You accountants of Eswatini, go out there and be the agents of the change. You accountants of Eswatini, go out there and remember that you can be great.
Njengaloku kulomsebenzi lo kuphothulelwa abagcina emabhuku etimali sihlalo inhlangano yabagcina emabhuku etimali makhosazana namhlanga ubabongele.
I wish you success and happiness in all you do. I know how hard you have worked for this, and I'm so proud of all of you. Your accomplishments are even more impressive as most of you have carried them during a worldwide pandemic. No doubt your life was disrupted at some point. No doubt there was also added stress, but you overcame all the challenges.
Professor Lumumba uthi kute kube netinguquko eveni lase-Afrika kumele kwakhiwe kabusha imigomo yokusebenza lesezingeni lelisetulu lekumele ilandzelwe i-revolution of ethics. Etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla mina sikhumbuzo Dlamini sesibayeni Logic Mathapha.
Inhlangano i-UNESCO Foundation setfulela ibandla lebaholi lelisha leliholwa ke ngusihlalo walo noZizwe Mlela. Lamalunga lamasha lenhlangano asihlanu.
Lenye imisebenzi yenhlangano e-UNESCO Foundation kusekela inyuvesi yaseSwatini nekuqinisekisa ukuthi inyuvesi ifeza imigomo yayo. Le nhlangano seyithulela ibandla lebaholi labasha kuqinisekisa ukuthi le nhlangano nayo inyuvesi ikhicita ngalokubhekekile. Lebe bakhona ke bafaka ikhasi netinhlangano letitimele letingekho ngaphansi kwahulumende nato-ke letibene live ukuthi tiyisekela njani-ke le nhlangano. Umphathi wale nhlangano uvula indlela simelana ukuthi uyethemba ukuthi batakusebenzisana netinhlangano letitimele kusita kuchubeka kwale nhlangano.
We have a moral obligation to do so and to do the right thing. And thank heavens we've got people from industry and development finance institutions, regulators gathered here today. We can do something, but so long as we are all coming together and we are creating mutually beneficial synergistic partnerships that will catapult the institution to greater heights. We know that we are all concerned about the state of the institution as described so eloquently by the Vice Chancellor, and some of the infrastructural development projects that need to be put in place. And I think there's really strong merit in us supporting that. The question
Nalabaqhamuka etinhlanganweni letinye letingekho ngaphansi kwahulumende bathembisile ukuthi batawisekela le nhlangano bavula tandla ekutheni akubanjwane kusebenziswane kuteke le nhlangano nenyuvesi ichubeke isebente ngalokubhekekile. Le nhlangano yenyuvesi yakuleli ithi ikubeka imbili ukuqinisekisa kutholakala kwetindzaba temifundza tebafundzi. Lamalunga lasihlanu kelangetekile ngunoZizwe Mlela longusihlalo, Mbuso Simelane, Mzamo Dlamini, Thapsile Mlangeni naMandla Ndlovu. Etindzabeni ngiyungiyani Msibi nginamuzi Mkhonda sise-Hilton eMbabane.
Inhlangano yetingoma temakwaya lamakhulu etikolweni i-Eswatini Schools Music Association seyitfole kusekeleka ngemali lengu-500,000 emalangeni kuthi ichubelo umchudzelwano loba semkhatsini kwetikolo letisikhombisa. Umcondzisi wetemfundvo wetikolo letemfundvo Dr. Ntombenhle Dlamini uthi kuhlabela kanye nekufundza kuyahambisana.
Lo mchudzelwano wetingoma temakwaya lamakhulu etikolweni sewelishumi kanti usekelwe ngetimali libhange le-Eswatini Bank. Umcondzisi waleli bhange noZizwe Mlela uthi leminyaka lelishumi lisekela lo mchudzelwano usho ukuthi sasikhathi lesidze leli bhange likhulisa futhi likhicita lithalente ebantwaneni betikolo nalabahlabelisa letingoma.
I believe we will continue to unearth more talent through this program. It must be highlighted that the 2023 competition is now decentralized to all 4 regions of the country.
Umcondzisi wetemfundo etikolo letemfundo Dr. Ntombenhle Dlamini uthi kuhlabela kanye nekufundza kuyahambisana njengaloku bafundzi batfole makhono lamanyenti lamcoka empilweni.
But there is a direct link between cognitive development and music. In our schools, we have children who come from different backgrounds. Some lack what we call self-confidence. And music brings back just that.
Sihlalo wenhlangano kuhlabele etikolweni Eswatini Schools Music Association Sithembiso Dlamini ubonge lokusekelea ngalesizumbulu semali lengu-500,000 emalangeni.
The orchestration of Siswati music is a great milestone for us in the project, and we will forever be grateful to Eswatini Bank for believing in this national project.
Kulo mgquzulwana walonyaka kuthiwa kube kunemhlomelo lobitwa ngeligama lenhlohlolozi yetingoma temakwaya amakhulu isemsikelela Msibi Award. Kulo mgquzulwana kubheke kusicuzulwana etikolo bantwana bemantombazane kanye nebafana etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla nginamuzi Mkhonta Sisembabane.
Kutemidlalo emaqembu lamane emidlalo wevolleyball kubobabe kanye nakubomake asatibekeke emathubeni lamahle ukuthi angaphakamisa indlebe yemidlalo wevolleyball yeseries yokucala lesekelwe inkampani yakamula Sport Betting. Lokho kulandzela ukuthi endlulele esigabeni lesendvulela emancamo phecelezi ema-semi-finals alendlebe. Lemidlalo lendvulela emancamo itodlalwa kulemphela sonto letako e-Olymp Africa kalobamba. Kanti-ke emidlalweni weboxing umshayi wesibhakela wakuleli loti lolongela eRussia Thabiso Dlamini uthe amalungiselelo akhe kulela live ahamba kahle sibili njengalokunyalo-ke sekatilungiselela kuyongenela imidlalo yekuhlungela imidlalo yema-Olympics. Dlamini uthile izinga lesekakulo liyamjabulisa kakhulu. Kanti-ke betingako lesikuphathele tona lo mhla ekuseni kwanelo muhle sibahlola etimakethe ngesimo selitulo. Uma sibuya sichubeka nelihlelo.
Sehlelweni lethi lithini libandla siyambonga uNkulunkulu uhlelo liphindze libuyele emoyeni.
Basically ngingathi nje empeleni yabona uNkulunkulu nakadala umhlaba including bantu.
Letikhathi leti tethenjisiwe mofundzi incwadi yaJohn chapter 16 verse number 33.
The way the gospel has been portrayed mayilethwa la kubantu yabo yende ukuthi abantu babe offended.
Sikholwa futhi ukuthi sidaphinde siba nabo evikini lelitako sikhulumisa yona le ndzaba lesikhuluma ngayo emsakadweni wakho Eswatini TV sibuko semaswati.
Ayijesuke kama lakho likhulu Jesuke
Athunze sinimukele sakuvusela nawo losonza kuzivulela lomhlahleleni Kusile breakfast show esivedile masingena ukuthi sidaba esikhuluma kabandi ngedindzaba tebantwana njengoba nje mhla ka Friday June 16 mhlaba wonke utabukupa the day of the African child ngaphansi ke kwesicubululo sibuke tona dindzaba tebuchwephesha ikakhulukati kwenesiqiniseko sokuthi bantwana bane access kito tebuchwephesha sivele sinaye lapha mhambi Dlangamandla losuwakhona ehovisini leliphini landvunankulu kusinikata nje sithombese ukuthi ingabe vele inhlala kahle yabantwana lapha ekhaya Eswatini ime kanjani ngoba sitawati ukuthi bakhona abantwana vele lokhanze ukuthi bahlukubedwa labanye bahlukubedwa bumakhelwane bahlukubedwa batali bahlukubedwa mindeni kanye ke labanye nje khanze ukuthi bashiwa ngibo bona batali labanye ke babuke tona tinhloko temakibo bangayima ama child headed families sifuna nje kuvaka abantu ukuthi ngabe vele mhlambe ima interventions ahulumende kuleti indzaba leti yini la yentako uhulumende kuzama ukunciphisa kona kuhlubeteka kwabantwana nempilo nje yabantwana noma ke inhlala kahle yabo bantwana. Sivusele babendla amadla sabe ngokuthi ube nathi lo mhla ekseni kube nje kokucala nje ngaba kuva lokho ukuthi langa lelibalekile leli sibuka tindzaba tebantfwana sanzisa lwati ngetinsayede bamphana lababhekene nato nokuthi ngabe mhlambe bangasitakala kanjani. Kubaleka ngana nje ukuthi vele umhlaba wonke uligubhele lusuku lona.
Siyabonga Mthombeni sivusele nesive semaswati ekhaya. Yebo lilanga lemntwana wase-Afrika lilanga lelimcoka kakhulu kithi silive singumhlaba wase-Afrika ikakhulu ngoba sithi umntwana ungumlibalo yaphambili. Lokho ukuthi-ke sike sime nje sitinike isithuba sokuthi sibukisise ukuthi tinsaye yatini umntwana labhekene nato eveni noma ke mhlawumbe esifundeni sase-Afrika. Kuyingcenye luhlelo lokwenda ukuthi sibe nentuthuko lekhonsako singemave ase-Afrika silive lase-Eswatini because siyati lokho ukuthi in about 20 years 30 years time labantwana lesithi bantwana namuhla kutabe kungibo kusasa bahleti kuleti tulo leti bahleti kuwo onke lama positions lesikiwo. So kungako ke mhlawumbe iAfrika iyaye ithi ngeminyaka ibuke leto tingcinama letikhona noma tinkinga letikhona letingavimba lokho ukuthi lenhloso yethu yakuthuthukisa umntwana ukuthi abe ngumuntu lotawubheka intuthuko kusasa ingendeki. Njengawo ke kulomnyaka iAfrika ibukile lokho ukuthi emveni kwa COVID-19 lo wende ukuthi bantwana bake bahlale emakhaya bangakhone kuya esikolweni lokunyathela ilungelo labo ndlela thide. Futhi kune timodel tulu weather events lendeka nawo lokhanza ukuthi abita ukuthi bantwana bahlale bangayi etikolweni. So lo nyaka njena African Union uthi asesibuke emalungelo ebantwana kutotona letebuchwepheshe rights of the child in the digital world. Ngokuthi bayakhona yini kuba ne-access noma ke kutitfola leto tinto leti basitako ukuthi bangene kule digital world. At the same time siphindze sibuke phela ukuthi basayisebenzisa nje kude yini tinto lotawukhanza ukuthi setiphindze tinyathela lamalungelo abo sibavikela njani basasebenzisa le digital world.
Okay. Mhlambe kubuyisela emuva nje babe mhambi eminyakeni wa 2021 mhlambe nasingabuka nje umbiko lwakho kwangelelo office leliphina Mvunankulu ukuthi bantfu noma ke ma cases labikwa nje kusukela nga January kuya ku June 2021 ma cases abamfu lo khanza ukuthi bahlukubeteka especially bantwana afika ku 7600. Ingabe vele mhlambe leyo nombolo leyo naniyibuka nini kuleto tinyanga leto nje yayisetulu yini nasicathanisa nje mhlambe nanyalo umnyaka wa 2023 neminyaka wa 2022?
Yes, le nombolo isedulu ingani salako ukuthi kube namunye umntwana lohlukubetekako. Lokunye lokuyaye kusiguide nasasebenta is that akusuba nemntwana salela ngemuva. No child should be left behind ku anything lesiyendako. So then tindzaba tekuhlukubeteka kwebantwana vele tindzaba letisesezingeni lelisetulu even kodwa ke lokunye lobekubanga lokuthi tibe setulu ngito letindzaba tekuthi bekulukhunyana kwesinye isikhathi lokureporta lokuthi naku sengihlukubetekile ngiko nje mhlawumbe nalonyaka uma sibuke lendzaba ye access to technology through through boma cell phones and stuff. Sizama kona also lokuthi uma abantwana bangaba ne-access to lama gadgets langa utawukhona umntwana ukuthi uma ngabe ahlukubetekile asheshe athathe licingo ashaye afune lusito lapho angasitakala khona. So yes, le tinombolo tisetulu kakhulu and usemkhulu kakhulu umsebenzi lodzingeka ukuthi hulumende kanye netinhlangano letitimele nesive nje kokuthi wendeke kuze bantwana bavikeleke endzabeni yekuhlubeteka eveni.
Okay. Ingavela nje kuva ukuthi ngabe uhulumende yena so usebente kanganani so hambe kanganani nje kuqinisekisa inhlala kahle yabantwana. Sidakumela ukuthi kunebantwana labatinhloko temakibe oma child headed families kunebantwana labashiya abadali babo kwanza ukuthi senibamikisa kuma safe houses labanye bahloko betwa ngibo bona abatali labanye ba witnessa yona le GBV kubadali babo labanye bahlubeteka nje tihlobo ingabe vele mhlambe uhulumende so uhambe kanganani kusebenta dona le tindzaba leti kona siqiniseko sokuthi bamfana baphephile bayanakekeleka.
Uhulumende usozame kakhulu kulwisana nekuhlubeteka kubantwana angesiko yedwa uhamba nato tinhlangano letingekho ngaphasi kwahulumende ama-NGOs. Ngingabekisa njena indzaba yabantwana labatinhloko temakhaya ukuthi hulumende ngeminyaka wa 2021 wasukumisa lihlelo le child headed farming project le lapho kusitakala khona abantwana lokhanza ukuthi nguye inhloko yalelikhaya lomntwana. Siyati ke ukuthi kudla kungunaku lesithi i-basic need yemuntu lo nangabe kude ukhanza ukuthi umfana sotawugcina alingeka ukuthi angihambe ngiyoganga ngebe ngendelo kwanaloko. Futhi kuphindze ku-expose bona labafana ukuthi lo munye seka ngabasebenzisa kushushumbisa tidzakamizwa noma yini kanjalo nemantombazana ukhanza ukuthi seka wungwa nje bantu labafuna ukuganga ngabo just because lo mntwana ulambile. So ngule lamanye efforts ahulumende kuphindze kwasukunyiswa lihlelo lokuthiwa yi-foster care lapho khona ukhanza ukuthi umuntu angasho nawe ungasho ukuthi yathi sengifuna ukukhulisa umntwana just kumnika likusasa lelingcono. So kunelihlelo le foster care nalo lunaka abantwana kakhulu lokhanza ukuthi abanabani because kithi asikubuki kokuthi ngoba umntali ungumuntu longazi ukuthi uyadlukulunzela bese sithi siyamthatha umntwana wakho siyomnika someone. Kuthatha umntwana kumntali kungaba i-last resort. Sibona ukuthi lo mntali uyamhlukubeda lo mntwana ndlela thide akasakhoni ukuthola emalungelo akhe. Kungikhathi ke uhulumende amthatha amisa kulama homes la khona eveni there are about 42 ngeyahulumende lapho khona ukhanza ke ukuthi bantwana sebayanakekeleka kokuthi bakhona ukuchubeka bafunze bakhona kuvikeleka kuloko kuhlukubeteka bekhona bakhona nakhona kokuthi kube addressed. Kanjalo netinhlangano letitimele tinhlangano letingekho ngaphasi kwahulumende there is a lot that they are doing ekusupporteni bantwana lokhanza ukuthi labanye vele bangiwo lama overseas banye bababhadalela esikolweni labanye babasita ngabo ma uniform just to come in and support the already existing OVC grant le khona kubantwana besikolo.
Okay. Kwagcina nje babe mhambisi ihlutsha sikhathi manje sikuva nje ukuthi ngabe vele le commemoration le taba yendeka kuphi ngitiphi nje tinhlangothi mhlambe le ndaba entibukile STPM naletinye tinhlangano lenibambisene nato.
Yes, i-commemoration yethu Mthombeni itabe yendeka elbulini eKhwezi high school. Sitabe sisebenzisana nato tonke tinhlangano le tingekho ngaphasi kwahulumende phasi kwesamlelo sakhango. Ngingakuveta nje lokho ukuthi sibheke khona ku celebrate lama success stories ebantu labaphilile Eswatini. Bantwana labaphilile Eswatini phansi kwetimo letilikhuni. Ukhanza ukuthi umntwana uqhamuka from a serious rural background but lo mntwana loyo uphasa kahle kakhulu kuma university namuhla na ungabuka lamanye ama backgrounds abantu labasleader kula event utawukhanza ukuthi bachamuka etimeni lapho besingathi kude lokutawuphuma. So that is why that is why every year sike sipause singumhlaba and say let us celebrate umntwana wase-Africa ukuthi through yonke le struggle lesikhona empilweni yakhe kudlubulenzela, but then uyakhona ukuchubeka abe ngumuntu lonele kusasa lelihle.
Alright, thanks so much. Isibonga kakhulu baba Mhambi. Njengoba sishilo ukuthi sizophinde sikhulumisane nje naSakhile Dlamini losuka ka World Vision sidaba hlelo market nasibuya sidaba esihleli phansi naye.
Bukela luhlelo embili kanye njalo ngelisonto ngensimbi yesithupha kusihlwa lapho sixoxa kabanti nalabati ngetindzaba tenhlalakahle, temnotfo netentfutfuko. Lolu hlelo luveta luphindze lukhulumise ke imitsetfo, tinhlelo nemigomo yahulumende letfutfukisa ke sive seMaswati. Luveta ematfuba netisombululo letiletsa ke inchubekela phambili esiveni. Embili kanye makubete ke liswati lelisalela emuva live lisachubekela entfutfukweni lekhonsile.
Sifunze sikuvusele sakumukela nawo losanza kusivulela sikhuluma kabanti nje ngelisuku olukhulu lolukutsha mhlaba wonke i-Day of the African Child lekutsha njalo mhla ka-16 June besicetheke kukhuluma namhambi ndlangamandla losuka khona ehhovisini la ka-DPM aseketa nje isithombe esenhlalakahle yebantfwana. I'm joined by Sakhile Dlamini losuka ka World Vision Eswatini into siniketa ke nasithombe sekukuthi ingabe simo lemimangweni sikanjani, ingabe bamfana banayo yini vele access kudebucebesha njengoba nje sicubulo lonyaka salokugujwa kwelanga sibuke natindzaba tebuchwephesha sithi the rise of the child in the digital technology. Asikuvusele inkosi yabonga ukuthi ube nasilomtha ekseni kuma nje vele singakangeni ke indzaba yesimo sebantfwana lemimangweni kusichazela njengalesi cubulo ukuthi vele kuyengani ukuthi mhlawumbe akhe sesicubulo lesi nekuva nje ukuthi ikhona imetamo lento yahulumende thina lapha ekhaya Eswatini ukuthi bamfana babe nayo access kutechuchumana.
Ngiyakufusela Mthombeni, ngiyafusela nesive seMaswati emakhaya. Sinhlangano ya World Vision siyabonga lokho ukuthi silithole leli thuba vele sinhlangano ke le sebenta dona tindzaba bantfwana ekakhulu ke emimangweni lapho sisebentela khona. Siyajabula ngalesicubulo lesikhona kulomnyaka lona wa 2023 sicubulo ke lesicubungulwa ke ye-African Union. Bese ke bayabuka ke lokho ukuthi tinsaya letikhona tebantfwana kulomnyaka leyo letivelele kuba ngitiphi. Kulomnyaka ke kukhulunyiwe ke indzaba ye digital technology kwabuka indzaba yemalungelo ebantfwana lapho. Uma ke sikhuluma indzaba ye-access sikhuluma ngekubuka lokho ukuthi phosa umhlaba vele sowugucukile tintfo letinyenti intfutfuko seyihanjiswa ngabo kona lokuchumana lapho sihleti khona nje uma umlaleli asibone emakhaya kusho ukuthi kunale technology lena lesebentako kuze ukuthi sihambise imilayeto nemfundvo nako konke lokho. Uma ke lendiwa licwaningo ngilabo labacwaningako eveni lase-Africa sibonile ma surveys abo bo human rights nabo bani kubonakele lokho ukuthi phose incumbi yebantfwana basalele emuva ikakhulu uma ubuka tindzawo letisemaphandleni. Sifuna kunaka nekubonga lokho ukuthi Even nakangwane sibonile imetamo ngohulumende sabona phinze imetamo nale kudinga inhlangano ukuthi kumbe sekube nale internet etinkundleni kube naloko ukuthi futhi etikolweni kube nalama computer labs ukuze ukuthi bantwana batawukhona kuyi-accessa le technology kuze ukuthi imigomo yabo yemfundo ithuthukiswe. Kodwa ke sisanaka lokho ukuthi labanyenti vele basasalele emuva. Kungako ke sibuka ke ukuthi ingabe lelizinga labo leku-accessa lingaphakanyiswa kanjani. Sibonile ke futhi ke etindzabeni ukuthi le security ke yabantwana ke ngoba sithi yize siba expose kule technology latingcingweni nako konke lokho kumgcoka lokho ukuthi bese sekuba nale safety as well. Nalapho ke there is a big concern simbonile uhulumende siyabonga lokuthi sekukhona umthetho lomusha lona we cyber security lobuka lokho ukuthi ingabe vele bantwana bona bangavikeleka kanjani basayisebenzisa le technology. Kunemacala lakabekiwe lapha ukuthi nakwendeke lokho kutawendeka lokho. Siyabona ke lokho ukuthi vele na ukhuluma ngale technology na ukhuluma ngalama cellphone uma ngabe kusho ukuthi umfana kumbe awumnakisisi uba sengodini yekungena etindzaweni letingasiko regulated letingasiko safe. Sibonile ke labanye bawungwa ngabo Facebook nato tintfo leti kanje ngama platforms la kanje ngalawo ukuthi hey buyani ngalana lokukhulumisa kwabona labanikati balobuchwephesha lobu lokho ukuthi yini intfo labangadenda kwenta siciniseko sokuthi bantwana abangeni bese baba sengodini letsite. Lokunye ke sithe sasebenta le kuvelile kakhulu kulenzima ledlalwa abatali bavelile ke bantwana basho lokho ukuthi uyatikela lamanye amalungelo ethu nabo abatalile labasibeka engodini ngaphandle kwekuthi nje abasinaki kwekuthi singena kwaphi ama websites nako konke lokho nabo benta na info labathi ke labantwana i-sharenting umtali uyasharisha konke ngemfana umfana namhla udlile umfana ka grade 1 umfana namhla ugcoke kancane umfana without the consent or lokubuka lokuthi lokushare le information leyo ngemfana noma lokushare lesithombe leso semfana kumbeka kuphi likusasa lakhe. So bakhuluma ke nabantwana ukuthi yebo siyayibonga le technology yasita siyadadisha siyabona kule tingoti sicela lokuthi nisifundzise sitokwati but nebatali bethu abasibambise ukuthi noma thina sitithiba kungabe sekuba ngibo basifaka bo status benda kanjani ini konke nje sengumfana angakayilethi nalemvumo yakhe kumtali lokho ukuthi kube naleto tinfo leto letendekako la kulabo social media lesibasebenzisa. Ngicabanga ukuthi kungabalula lokho ke kulesikhathi sanyaka
lesicubula. I think nje sesisebenza isikhathi lesincane kakhulu 2 minutes mhlawumbe kusiniketa nje sithombe inkosi ukuthi ngoba ninevele nivakashela labantwana emimangweni kakhulu indzawo letsile emaphandleni niyasathi lesimo sabo ingabe yini leniyeni ikhanze vele senjani nje lesimo vele lemimangweni kakhulu kade nje lemakhaya.
Simo sabantwana siyabonga siyanaka naloko ukuthi kube nemitamo yekubanaka labantwana etinhlangothini letehlukile etinhlangothini tekufundza tale social welfare lokuzama lokubalethela lusito lalapho bakhona khona kudla timpahla hulumende ahamba embili naletinye tinhlangano letingekho ngaphansi kwahulumende. Kodwa ke siyanaka phindze lokho ukuthi kuna timo leti bese setiba ngetulu kwemandla solo nyalo sisazama kuphuma kulokwendiwa ngeCovid emimangweni kwendiwa kwaphela imisebenzi kwanyuka abo teenage pregnancy kwaba nato tonke letinfo leto nato nisaya lesisachubeka sihlangabetane nato. Lokunye ke lesikubonako ngiloko ukuthi yize lemetamo yendiwa yentfutfuko nako ukugucugucuka kwesimo selitulu nako kuphindze kufike bese sekubuyisela lentfutfuko lebese yendiwe emuva. Kungako ke siyinhlangano yaka World Vision sibambisene nahulumende naletinye tinhlangothi siyabuka lokho ukuthi vele nasikhuluma ngenhlala kahle yemfana yini intfo lesingachubeka sende isiciniseko sokuthi bayatitfola lokufaka ekhatsi ke emanti kufaka ekhatsi kuvikeleka kufaka ekhatsi tempilo kufaka ekhatsi nje nenhlala kahle yabo ukuthi singabakhulumisa kanjani kakhulu naletindzaba tekuhlukubeteka kwabo ukuthi lapho kunelwati khona nathi sikhone ukuhlala nalabantwana sibanake sikhone ukuthi sibavete nasemahhovisi ahulumende lakafanele ikakhulu nje indzaba tekubhalisa kwetitifiketi nathi utasikhanza lapho ngoba siyanaka lokho ukuthi kumbe inombolo tsahambele emuva abantwana basatsinga ukuthi babe nato itifiketi tabo.
Okay, no ngiyavakala but sithemba ukuthi sayaqhubekisa le conversation lena ivikini letako ngaloko sisakholela ukuthi naphenze nibuye esengaphela inyanga ya June solo sikhuluma donatini zaba nje bantwana kepha ke imbukelo nesiqiniseko sokuthi ngamsombuluko ukhona khona libulini esikoleni lesiphakeme saseKhwezi lapho ukuthi abogujwa khona lilanga le Day of the African Child. Sabuhlola itamakethe sabe ne traffic update.
Do you remember the spinning thing? This is us. This picture represents what we did. We were there when coronavirus wreaked havoc in our population. Together with other stakeholders, we formed the first line, controlling the spread of the unknown and unseen enemy of the people. Anxious ourselves, we collected dead bodies countrywide. At the time when no one wanted to come near dead bodies of loved ones, we did care for our fellow citizens. Thank you, the people of Eswatini and teams of first responders.
Asimze sirimukele sekuvusele nawo lesanza kusivulela ke isikhathi sitawubuka simo semgwaco na Constable Ntombenhle asevusele umntolo ngabe khambeka kanjani emgwacweni nomhlekuseni.
Ngikuvusele Thombeni ngivusele naye umbukeli Kusile breakfast show. Imigwaco elivela kangwane singumbutho wembubene sive sesihlolile imigwaco leminengi iyahambeka kepha ke lokukhona kulolu suku lanamuhla siyanaka umoya mukhulu kakhulu ngaphandle nje ke bashayeli basashayela abende siqiniseko ukuthi bahamba ngelitubane leliphasi kwadise phela ukuthi na uhamba ngelitubane lesetulu kanti nawo umoya ukhona igcine le moto leyo seyiphuma esandleni semshayeli nekukhuthatha ke labo labatawuphuma nje etindlini bahambe ngetinyawo ukuthi abahlale bagazile baqalaqalade kwadise phela ukuthi umoya nangabe uphambana nawo umsindo kulukhunyana ukuthi uve na uhamba khona eceleni kwemgwaco sithi nje asinakeni kakhulu ngakulolo hlangothi emadolobha eliveke ahloliwe nawo tibane temgwaco siyasebenza kuwo onke ngaphandle kwedolobha lelikhulu lasembabane la khona singasebenzi lapha kakiyana utawuwelela khona esibhedlela nadoda semangwaneni namuhla adisebenzi siyanaka ke ukuthi siphazamisekile nato ngenxa yemoya lovushako khathi edolobheni embabane uSitaladi lesingusomhlolo road lesuka khona edolobheni siye esport solo sivaliwe bashayeli bakhuthathwa ukuthi basebenzise letinye indlela letingena khona ekhathi edolobheni umgwaco lomkhulu losuka ehekeni lasengwenya uye kamanzini lokufaka ekhathi naye emalagwane uyahambeka kulosuku lanamuhla kude sikhinyabedo lesikhona ngaphandle nje ukuthi khona kumalagwane uhamba kunemagala nje la emgwacweni bekawiswe nguwo umoya sithi nje nako lokho asikunake ekhathi edolobheni kamanzini sihlolile nakhona tibane temgwaco lesilapha eceleni kwase remand center adisebenzi nyalo ekseni lomunye umgwaco lesiuhlolile ngumgwaco lo suka khona kalamathatha ku junction ubheke khona kamathatha lo mgwaco loyo kunethi 70 temgwaco lapho leti walungisako lokwenta ukuthi kuvuleke munye umvila kuwo umvila lobheka khona kalamathatha ishiselo nayo ihloliwe umgwaco losuka khona emhlaleni uye khona kahlathi kusuka lapha kuTebetebe uyawufika khona eNkwene clinic lo mgwaco loyo uyalungiswa ugugubuliwe lokwenta ukuthi kungahambeki kahle nangabe uhamba ngelitubane lesetulu siyakhuthatha nje kubo bashayeli basasebenzisa lo mgwaco ukuthi banakisise bakhona ke lapho nabo stop and go la bahamba ngetigaba sithi nje asikunake nako lokho ekhathi edolobheni enhlangano nakhona sihlolile kusuka lapha kaMjuda uyawufika khona eCasino lo mgwaco lo uvaliwe wonke lokwenta ukuthi bashayeli bangene ekhathi edolobheni nababheka khona bomhlosheni bayawuphumela khona eCasino ukuze ukuthi bahambe ngekuphepha. Ngale kwaloko Thombeni naye umlaleli umbukeli imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane iyahambeka ngaphandle nje kwalehle sengitishito sisikabeto kungaba kusisela yena umbukeli usuku loluhle naloluphephile basetawusebenzisa yona imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane.
Sibonga Constable Fakutse ngaloyo mbiko walamhla ekseni sidaba hlelo emakethe nasibuya sibuka ngephandle kwakuleli.
Hey, register.
Sengiregistela ini manje Didi phela ngoba
Hey, cha ke ngiyamangala. Kuthi kulesikhathi lesiphila kiso, kule live lesiphila kilo. Ukhona umuntu lomusha longadi ukuthi kulamalanga kuyabhalisa.
Hayi man Didi nibhalisela ini?
Sibhalisela likhetho umhla ka14 wekuceda kubhalisa usemnyaka kulamaviki latako.
Didi kutasita ngani sine lokho register?
Kutasita kakhulu phela ukuthi le nombolo lebantu abasha lababhalisako ibe setulu. Sitawukwati ukukhetha abantu labatasimelela, bantu labasatiko tidzingo tethu sibantu labasha, bantu labatawati ukuthi uma ngabe ufuna kuletha lishintsho, ufuna wende njani.
Didi mina kusasa ngivukela khona ngiyakhona sengiyoregister.
Sekulate kusasa setivele tithumele emasimbeni. Hamba ulenze matisi lapha esitolo kaMasango bakhona lababhalisako. Mina ngibese ngibhalisa edolobheni ngekuthi khona tishwana bengiyodenda.
Avele ngiphuthume endini ngithathe iID yami ngiyabona.
Kutasita lokho mngani wami. Hawu.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards.
This is Eswatini TV News.
Good morning and welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take a look at international news. President Vladimir Putin claimed that Ukraine was suffering massive losses in its long-awaited counter-offensive against Russian forces in Ukraine, saying Kyiv's casualties were 10 times higher than Moscow's. His assessment came hours after Russia asserted having captured Western armored vehicles from Kyiv's forces on the battlefield and following daily Russian missile strikes on the Ukrainian leader's hometown.
Carting away the bodies of the dead. Russian airstrikes carried out overnight destroyed apartment buildings in Kryvyi Rih. The central Ukrainian city is President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown. Survivors recount the horror of the attack.
We woke up from the sound of a missile flying above us. Then we heard the first explosion. I ran to the other room, and then a really terrifying wave knocked down everything: windows, wardrobe, and front doors.
My sister was sleeping in the other room. I ran to her and screamed, "Natasha, quick, strikes!" I just carried her out, and the window frame fell. Everything was on fire. Cars and everything. Everything fell down in my home.
Firefighters were dealing with the smoldering ruins in the aftermath of the missile strikes that also targeted a soda warehouse and a transport business. Dozens were hurt in the attack, suffering from burns and blast injuries. Meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers are pressing ahead with their counteroffensive to liberate Russian-held areas in the south and east. As officials say, they've retaken 7 settlements.
The Russians are attacking both in the south and the east of our country. They're scared of our offensive. They're scared of our resistance that we've been carrying on for 16 months already. They're in despair, so they're just trying to make our people scared.
Speaking at a meeting with Russian war bloggers in Moscow, President Putin disputed Kyiv's version of the counteroffensive, claiming instead that Ukraine was suffering catastrophic losses in its fight against Russian forces.
Fierce fighting continued in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, on Monday with airstrikes, artillery and gunfire ringing out. Since April, Sudan's military and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces have been locked in a violent conflict. Sudan's Doctors Syndicate estimate that 860 civilians have been killed in the fighting. Last Friday, warring sides agreed to a 24-hour ceasefire, which ended at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning.
The streets of Khartoum lie empty and desolate. Residents remain locked inside their houses as the battle between the country's army and paramilitary Rapid Support Forces rages on. Despite a brief respite due to a ceasefire over the weekend, shelling and deadly fighting picked up again minutes after it ended. On the outskirts of the Sudanese capital, the town of Omdurman came under heavy artillery. Nothing was spared, like this house's facade damaged by shelling.
How can people live in a city that is bombed and beaten and has snipers in the streets? There are no shops, no services, no markets.
The ceasefire agreement allowed civilians in the capital to buy food and medicine, but with stocks running low, residents struggled to find essential supplies. Emergency services are also inaccessible. The Red Cross reports that only 20% of hospitals are still working.
It's been almost 2 months now, and the humanitarian situation is very difficult. There's a lack of supplies, a lack of food, a lack of medicine. Even for the wounded and the injured, there's no possibility to help them.
The conflict broke out on April 15th, displacing almost 2 million people, with at least 450,000 seeking refuge in neighboring countries like Chad and Egypt. The UN estimates the fighting has left 25 million people, the equivalent of over half of Sudan's population, seeking humanitarian aid.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump will make his first court appearance in an historic criminal case. Trump stands accused of retaining classified documents and attempting to hide them from investigators who demanded them back. Trump will answer to 37 felony counts. The case marks a watershed moment for a Justice Department that has never before brought charges against a former president.
A day before his 77th birthday, it's not the present he might have hoped for. Donald Trump is to be arraigned at the Wilkie D. Ferguson Courthouse. He's expected to motorcade to the court at 3 p.m. Miami time, 1900 GMT. The hearing is set to last around an hour. The judge will formally read out 37 federal charges against Trump. Most are related to the unauthorized possession of classified documents, as well as his alleged efforts to hide information from investigators. Trump has indicated that he will plead not guilty on all counts, though it's not clear if he will enter his plea on Tuesday or at a later hearing. A date for a trial is not likely to be announced. After the arraignment, Trump is to fly back to his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, where he's scheduled to make an address at 0:15 hours GMT. Typically, criminal defendants are handcuffed, fingerprinted and photographed for a mugshot at their initial court appearance. However, when Trump was arraigned by a New York state court in April, he was only fingerprinted. It's also not yet clear which judge will oversee the hearing. Trump is said to appear before a magistrate, but his case has been assigned to a district court judge, Eileen Cannon, who was appointed by the former president and who has previously intervened in his favor. A former president appearing in court is as high profile as it comes in terms of security, and with Trump, it's even more so. A large portion of his support base says it believes violence is justified to restore him to power. Specifics for Trump's security detail have not been released, and protests are expected, both for and against the former president, at Tuesday's hearing.
Tens of thousands of people who live near the nation's most active volcano in Philippines have been evacuated. Many of them are villagers who live in poor farming communities. Lava has been flowing from the Mayon volcano, and there are concerns of larger eruptions.
Lava spews down its slopes. The Philippines' most volatile volcano, the Mayon, now in full flow. The first fires emerged late on Sunday evening after a week of increased activity. Thousands of people living in a 6-kilometer radius from the crater have been evacuated.
We had this feeling that our end is near.
Most of those who have fled have lived in these farming villages for generations, making this departure particularly hard.
It's difficult to be displaced from your home. We left behind our livestock and we don't know how we will provide for our daily needs.
There's a new sense of fear and suffering as toxic fumes engulf the region. For Amelia Morales, it's the second tragedy she's had to contend with in a matter of days, holding a wake for her late husband amidst the chaos.
It's really very difficult because we don't have any money. Mayon acting up, and then my husband died. And now we are stuck in the evacuation center.
But there remains an unspecified number of people choosing to stay behind, even in areas long declared off limits, and at great risk. Seismologists warn the eruption could turn violent, evoking memories of 5 years ago at the same spot, when tens of thousands were displaced.
Mali will hold a referendum this Sunday on reforming the country's constitution. Among their proposals to scrap French as Mali's official language. Hundreds of thousands of Malians live in neighboring Ivory Coast, and there's a campaign for the yes vote is in full swing.
Abidjan Municipal Hall, representatives of the Malian diaspora debate a proposed reform of the constitution. With the referendum just a week away, most of these Malian nationals already know which ballots they will cast.
For me, it's very clear. I will vote, and I will vote yes.
The reform includes plans to scrap French as the country's official language and would allow Malians living abroad to vote in future municipal elections, a popular provision in Ivory Coast where some 300,000 members of the Malian diaspora are already registered to vote. The reform would also significantly strengthen the powers of the president, allowing him to appoint and fire ministers and dissolve parliament. Critics worry this could allow the current military government to cling to power, but in Abidjan, most Malians seem to trust in the integrity of Colonel Assimi Goïta.
The Constitution of 1992 was also adopted by a president who seized power through a coup. So saying that Goïta doesn't have the legitimacy to propose a new constitution is hypocritical, and it doesn't reflect the reality of Mali.
Initially scheduled for March, the referendum will now take place on June 18th, and in Mali, members of the military already began casting early ballots on Sunday. The reform represents the first step of a roadmap that should see the country return to civilian rule by February 2024.
The United Nations expects close to 1 million people to flee Sudan by October, most of them to neighboring countries like the Central African Republic, Chad, Egypt, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. But most of those nations have their own problems with people displaced by conflict who face food insecurity and instability.
16-year-old Saeed Adam Mohammed says one morning in May he rode his bike down to this patch of ground on the outskirts of Barota, a Chadian town about 5 kilometres from the Sudan border. He saw thousands of Sudanese refugees arriving.
People ran away and came over here, but there is no food or drinking water, no decent food, no clothing.
Some 425,000 refugees have now fled to neighbouring countries because of Sudan's civil war, but many of their host countries face their own conflicts and are struggling to feed their own people amid skyrocketing food prices and inflation. Experts and aid groups say Sudanese refugees face far from certain futures in host countries, including the Central African Republic, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea and Egypt. The mayor of Barota, Toko Bahat, says the community has done what it can to welcome the refugees.
In Barota, the people are from a mix of places like Kanga and Porto. They know one another. They are like siblings since they come from the same families or tribes. So there is no problem in living together.
Similarly, in South Sudan, many of those fleeing Sudan are South Sudanese returnees. However, 2/3 of South Sudan's population already faces food insecurity and instability in rank, where many refugees have arrived.
The difference with South Sudan compared to perhaps Chad or Egypt is that the majority of people who are coming across the border are returnees. Communities are quite welcoming, and of course we hope that continues. The pressure that this is putting on markets, on the humanitarian response, is definitely going to be difficult for humanitarian agencies and the government.
Most Sudanese refugees, more than 170,000, have fled to Egypt in recent weeks. Egypt's currency has been devalued by 50% against the dollar in the last year, while food prices have risen by 60%. The Central African Republic, where around 14,000 refugees have arrived, has been embroiled in a civil war for more than 10 years, and security is dire. Ethiopia, where thousands of refugees have fled, is recovering from a civil war that ended in November. Eritrea has been accused of forcibly turning away refugees attempting to flee Sudan's fighting. On a visit to Egypt in late May, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees commended Egypt for helping Sudan's refugees, but said we urgently need to mobilise more resources to help them to maintain this generosity.
A landmark trial centered on the effects of climate change is underway in the U.S. state of Montana. 16 young people are suing the state for failing to protect the environment. The case is the first in a series of similar legal challenges pending in a number of other states.
It's here at the Lewis and Clark County Courthouse in Helena, Montana, that the U.S.'s first ever climate change lawsuit has gone to trial. Before District Judge Kathy Seeley, the 2-week trial is about whether or not Montana is sufficiently protecting the environment in the face of the climate crisis. There are 16 plaintiffs, all of them young residents. They say fossil fuel-friendly Helena has been approving permits that are against Montana's constitutional requirement to safeguard the environment. Known for its pristine beauty, the state has been hit hard by droughts, wildfires, drying rivers, and shorter winter seasons due to climate change. But the state's assistant attorney general argued in court that the sparsely populated state has a small carbon footprint.
Climate change is a global issue that effectively relegates Montana's role to that of a spectator.
The state tried unsuccessfully to get the case thrown out of court prior to trial, arguing that pushes to curb climate change should be dealt with at the legislative level and not in the courts. For the young plaintiffs, though, Montana, with its vast coal reserves, must be held accountable for support of the fossil fuel industry.
I know that climate change is a global issue, but Montana needs to take responsibility for our part. You can't just blow it off and do nothing about it.
The case could set an important precedent with other lawsuits. According to the nonprofit Oregon law firm Our Children's Trust, it's backing the Montana youth in their case, as well as other young Americans seeking climate justice.
Journalism, once a popular career path for young Afghan men and women, is losing its appeal for new students as the Taliban ban women from higher education and the country's media work in an increasingly restrictive environment.
Just a few years ago, this journalism school in Herat was filled with students keen to pursue a career in one of Afghanistan's most vibrant sectors. But now, Kahkashan Sharq University is struggling to find young Afghans interested in signing up to media classes. It's a trend seen across the province and country, as restrictions on how media can operate and rules barring women from higher education turn students away.
Unfortunately, the Department of Journalism in our university and one or two other universities had too few students. Therefore, classes were cancelled.
Students taking their first step into media work say restrictions and a poor media economy can be off-putting.
Most female reporters or young people who wanted to start journalism are no longer interested because of the restrictions on media and the worsening economic situation.
Before the Taliban takeover, Herat had a varied media scene with around 70 web and print outlets. But media associations say that figure is dwindling. The Taliban have dismissed concerns about the state of journalism. Their director of information and culture in Herat says that his directorate is trying to help media.
We are trying to solve the problems of the media outlets by consulting with them regarding access to information and their financial problems.
But others question whether the industry will be able to carry on.
No one wants to pursue journalism as they don't see a future in it. If they saw a future in it, then they would study journalism and work in media.
With fewer journalism students at universities and media companies downsizing or shuttering, audiences in Herat and elsewhere in Afghanistan will have fewer sources for news.
In its heyday, Hong Kong was the Hollywood of Asia, turning out stars such as Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Chow Yun-fat, and recent Best Actress Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh. While the industry has seen a decline over the past 2 decades, Hong Kong is experiencing what some say is a film revival, despite stricter controls and censorship.
This is the new face of Hong Kong cinema. New actors, new stories, and new directors, like Norris Wong.
Actually, I quite like making indie movie because it's more flexible. And you can choose whatever topic or whatever story you like to tell.
Wong's second feature film is about the struggles of a Cantonese pop lyricist. She shot it with a budget of less than $300,000, using earnings from her debut film and a loan from a director friend. Big production companies used to be the norm in Hong Kong, but many later went to mainland China to tap the huge market there. And then Hollywood films flooded Hong Kong's theaters. But now, independent filmmakers such as Wong are stepping in to fill the void, with the help of funding from friends, investors, and the government. Their films probe topics like the plight of blue-collar workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Narrow Road is about a cleaning company owner and a single mother who works for him, and how they learn to face life's difficulties together. Another, Drifting, is based on a legal case by homeless people fighting for the right to live on the streets in one of the world's most expensive cities. At the same time, local production companies are refocusing their lenses on the city. Over the past year, 3 locally produced movies have smashed box office records for Hong Kong films and rivaled Hollywood blockbusters.
I think Hong Kong films have more depth to them. They have fewer gimmicks than before.
Sensitive political topics, however, such as the 2019 anti-government and pro-democracy protests, are banned, making some people in the industry worried. Wong is one of them.
I guess the new challenge that we are facing now is the censorship of the national security law, which is very new to us. That may affect the probability of having a complete film shown in the theater. I think it's the biggest challenge for the new directors.
Film industry experts say that it's too soon to tell if recent box office successes will last. But they say what's clear is local filmmakers are determined to keep making films about Hong Kong.
One thing we can be optimistic about is that there are more and more young filmmakers who are passionate about making films, despite all the difficulties, challenges in Hong Kong film industry.
Chen says that, in this respect, what is happening now is like a revival of cinema, a revival of hope for the future of cinema in Hong Kong.
For many years, Kenya's livestock market has faced challenges like price instability, low purchasing power among consumers, and limited marketing options for pastoralists. Now a Nairobi-based startup called M-Nomad is offering small livestock farmers in rural areas a way to buy and sell their livestock online.
Early morning in this livestock market at the heart of Wajir town in Kenya's northeast. Ibrahim Ahmed takes pastoralists through M-Nomad, an online livestock marketplace. He co-founded the site with Abdurrahman Ahmed in 2019. He says small rural farmers now have much easier way to buy and sell their livestock.
We normally come to markets like this to register the pastoralists and get their data, like the number of animals and the prices, and then we connect them with livestock buyers who are mainly bulk buyers. They normally want like a specific type of animal, and they cannot reach up to these markets.
Ahmed says M-Nomad has done livestock transactions for hundreds of clients from as far as Mogadishu in Somalia by connecting buyers and sellers online.
One of the main benefits of M-Nomad is better price for pastoralists. We try to give them a better price, 20 to 25% better price than what they get in the market. Because for us, the buyer is from somewhere else.
M-Nomad is the first product of Gelgil Technologies Limited, which was also co-founded by Ibrahim Ahmed. It covers over 10 market areas in northern Kenya and has registered more than 300 pastoralists, including Siad Ali.
I'm a pastoralist with 78 goats. Gel here helped me make a profit by selling my livestock in far areas, but I am hoping to sell more in the future.
Kenya's Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock estimates about 60% of the livestock population in Kenya is found in the arid and semi-arid lands. For majority of the people living here, livestock is their main source of income, but officials say the sector has been on decline.
We had 5 seasons of failed rainfall. We have lost over 30% of our livestock population. So to counter this, we are introducing, together with the help of our partners, piloting of feedlots, fattening centers, and fodder production, so that we can at least reduce the risk of livestock deaths during times of calamities.
The livestock sector in Kenya is not centralized, and experts say counties should put more funds in the establishment of proper market infrastructure.
We want the government to help us sell our livestock overseas because at the moment we have a bad market. Other than Mogadishu and Nairobi, we don't have another market, but we need help.
By the end of 2023, M-Nomad plans to expand its coverage inside Kenya and to neighboring countries.
It's another huge blow for fans of French football. Star player Kylian Mbappe has announced he will not extend his contract with PSG, which ends next year. The news follows the departure of another star player, Lionel Messi, who recently said he was leaving to play soccer in the US.
It's an announcement which has taken the football world by surprise. According to media reports, Kylian Mbappe is not expected to play for PSG after the 2024 season, following his decision not to renew his contract for 2025. The star striker signed a 2-year deal which lasts until the end of 2024 with the option to extend it by 12 months. But his latest move could mean Paris Saint-Germain risks losing him free of charge. At the Ligue 1 Player of the Year awards in May, Mbappé hinted there would be no continuation after the end of his contract.
I said that next year I'll play at PSG. I still have a year of my contract, so I'll honour that.
The striker joined PSG on a season-long loan in 2017, which turned into a permanent deal worth €180 million. The 24-year-old won 5 French league titles with PSG, was named the Ligue 1's top scorer in each of the last 5 seasons, and led France to victory in the 2018 World Cup. Last year, the club is reported to have turned down Real Madrid's bid of around €200 million for Mbappé. But this summer could be different, as PSG is under pressure to sell the striker before he leaves, opening the possibility of a bidding war by other clubs. Should Kylian Mbappé walk out, he would be the second star striker to leave Paris Saint-Germain after Lionel Messi's recent departure for Inter Miami. A third football star in the club, Neymar, is also rumoured to be leaving.
It's 29 minutes after 7. We've come to the end of our international news. Thank you for staying with us. After the break, we will be joined by Dr. Mabuza to talk about World Blood Donor Day. Stay with us.
Ukubhalisela lukhetho sekuqalile. Ngakho-ke, faka isandla ekwakheni uhulumende wakho ngekuthi ubhalise. Bhalisela lukhetho esiteshini sekubhalisa lesisedvude nawe. Kubhalisa ukuthi awugcina amatili 14 inhlaba kulosetulu. 14 June 2023. Ungasali, zakha live letfu.
Minutes after 7, siphindze sikwamukele ehlelweni ngwanelo muhle. It is World Blood Donor Day lomuhla. It is celebrated every year on June 14. Kubonga nje kakhulu ama-acts of selflessness and voluntary blood donors lapha emhlabeni. Kubonga kakhulu nje nalokuthi babe nayo leyo humanity. Slogan salonyaka ke sayo noma ngithi i-theme ye-World Blood Donor Day ya 2023 is give blood, give plasma, share life, share often. Yini plasma, we do know what it means to give blood. We also are aware ukuthi bahlale basicukutela ukuthi nabathi nje unikela ingadi, you are sharing life ngoba usuke usindisa impilo yalomunye umuntu. We want to know what this theme highlights, the importance of this theme really, as well ekutheni ingadi lesinayo lapha kaNgwane, is it adequate and is it sustainable? Ekutheni nje Maswati asitakala uma ngabe ashotelwa ngiyo ingadi. We have Dr. Precious Waweru losjoyina kolomuhla. She is a physician with the Ministry of Health, a specialist physician at that with the Ministry of Health. Utasiphendula nje imibuto yonke lesinayo. Doctor, a very wonderful morning. How are you? And thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
What is the importance of Sugu Lalomuhla, World Blood Donor Day?
So, World Blood Donor Day is commemorated to really reach back to the people that was donated, to acknowledge their acts of service towards the community, and basically it's just to also use this opportunity to encourage new donors or people who would like to donate to also join this non-act of service for the community.
I'm looking at the theme, give blood, give plasma, share life. It's a bit of a sore thumb. It hits home on my end. Ngoba, I've had a relative not so long ago. We realized, in fact, we found out ukuthi anemic, and unfortunately vele kwadzinga ukuthi kube naleyo emergency where kufuna simtfolele ingadi. Ekhaya sibaningana ama-siblings sing-9 saphuma nje sonke kuyodonata, but there was still that worry ekutheni is it going to be fast enough utalutfola yini lelo sito lolo. Ngiyafuna lokuva ukuthi do we have sufficient blood in our blood banks, ngoba I do remember at the time this wami nakathi ngalolu sito basitshela nje ngembaba ukuthi cha kude nyala ingadi le enough kumsita, so siyacela ukuthi nide nicele netihlobo nje nicele nje bantu nasenkundleni yokuxhumana ukuthi bede batawudonate.
So in terms of storage or stocks in of ingadi yafana nje njengeliphilisi. So you need to source it out because you're giving it as medication. So la kangwane, we all know that the whole world was COVID-19, and we've had to maybe the lockdowns and restrictions. So it was also a bit difficult to get blood into our storage. But it's good to compare from the time now where COVID has sort of subsided and access to the donors is much easier. In terms of kuti, when we compare 2021 to 2022 and 2023, la stocks are improve with time. It's true, Vele, we have fewer blood in our banks, but which is why we want to use this opportunity to encourage people to come and donate. And as you said, the non-voluntary volume yabo isesencane, and we want to encourage even labantu ukuthi baqhubeke badonate. And you've mentioned that you've had a relative, so we do encourage relatives to come and donate. But just to say that nalabo batreatwa as a donor, so you go through the process of screening. It may or may not be compatible as isihlobo sakho, but the lengati leyo, if we're eligible, siyakhona kuyisebenzisela lo mnye umuntu.
Okay, so in terms of eligibility, this person is eligible to donate blood.
Okay, so kuyahluka with different countries, but for Eswatini, we are using from anyone from the age of 16 to age of 65. Umuntu lophilile lesithi ke pheke kude gula lokuthathelana ngengadi lo alashelwa kona. So umuntu lo ngalashelwa maybe bo HIV or bo hepatitis or letifo delgans, because leto dingathathelwana kulo muntu lothi umniketa ingadi. So, and also kuke kwaba nalo ukuthi bantu labane kuma tattoos abasaniketwa ingadi, but it's actually abachronic donate. But now WHO has moved to say that they can donate, but they need to wait for a certain period because in the process of getting those tattoos or getting those categorized as a high risk behavior.
They use needles anyway too.
They do. Back then, I think be as sterile, so the tattoo probably industry has tried to also improve their quality so that it's also a safe thing to do, because we know young people or any person who wants to have a tattoo, they go ahead and do it. And the restriction leyo ukuthi ungadonate ingadi because besibona ukuthi kuyi high risk ukuthi uthole ukugula lokuthathelana ngetinyalithi.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how the uptake of tattooing is becoming yakhula kakhulu. I am interested in finding out ukuthi nzenza ukuthi tinombolo talaba non-voluntary in terms of donating atifani nalaba voluntary. Ngiyakhumbula when I was still at tertiary benfika nicele bafundzi ukuthi abadonate. I'm not sure in high school. Oh yeah, I think that in high school we've had that situation. Evelyn Perry. Ngiyafuna lokova ukuthi nisaqhubeka yini ngalama drive lawo, are they still very necessary? Labantu labeta voluntarily liyakhula yini linani labo, given that we've had instances especially on social media whereby uthola nje umngane wakho asakhala lana athi nesihlobo sami siyacela manje nisibambise nangabe you are type this type sicela ukuthi donate?
So e-drive, yeah, the school drive or tertiary institution is still very much going on.
Okay.
And it's still one of the biggest contributors to the blood bank because sabonanje when there was lockdowns, so there were schools, there was no access to the students as well as the college students. So, but again, now that things have been opened, they still contribute quite a lot. So there are drives that go to specific schools, and there are actually known donors there. You're gonna age limit here to at 16 years of age. So anyone lona 16. Because of the struggle to get the blood, the country has also moved down to reduce because kuba weight as well, by restriction. So someone with a weight of above 50 beka qualify ukuthi donate ingadi, and then nangabe maybe ke so nabo 45 kilograms, now we've introduced ukuthi they can also donate,
but not at the same volume.
At the same volume.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Sense.
And because of the struggle that we are not getting enough blood. So Sister Kanza Nazi says khona lokuthi sithole enye indlela, because even a 16-year-old may not be 50 kgs, a 16-year-old may be less than 50, but we are qualified by virtue of age, by virtue of healthy udema blood-borne infections. So those are the strategies that have been tried to try and get more blood and more access to blood.
And then kugula ngiyabekisa nje uma nginemkhuhlane, can I still donate if I'm under treatment maybe? Kubangimala many restrictions.
So yes, kuba nale screening process. So apart from the age, the weight, your blood pressure, then we screen you for an acute infection. Maybe flu is one of them.
Okay.
If you've had a fever, as part of the screening, that we do take temperature, because someone might be having a fever angat. So that's part of the list of things that are done to test the infection. But we allow you to recover, and then so you donate.
Yeah, and then things about the life-threatening conditions.
Okay, so we divide them into maybe 4 categories. So a life-threatening condition could be a major life-threatening event like an accident where you are losing blood. So my trauma victims, maybe demoto or some form of accident that causes you to lose blood. So that's life-threatening. Those are the ones that need blood urgently.
Okay.
Bantu maybe lo bekayo belega, bomagela batetfele sabayo belega sebo pagakulu. That could be also like one of the people that's baniketa ingati. And then maybe kuba nekugula nje kwengadi ukuthi umuntu utelwe maybe nekugula lokumenda ukuthi ophelula, so sometimes ophe to a point ukuthi akasakhoni kuma, so that's when we need to give them blood. And lamanye ke lokunye ukugula lokunjengabo umdlavuza wengadi naleminye imidlavuza lebanga ukuthi ingadi idleke. So those are the people that can also need blood, and those are life-saving life-threatening diseases that we give blood for.
Yeah, kubo surgery kuyendeka yini ukhanza ukuthi umuntu usukhona sawudzinga kusinaye sesenithatha ingadi from one of your banks seniyamsida. Does it happen ukuthi umkhansela uzakhula ingadi during a surgery?
Yes, so it's one of the categories as well.
Okay.
So major operations that require blood. Then someone may not bleed by virtue of Gucci, but it can happen as a complication of Gucci surgery. So we hope.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why Munfunoma Soyondiwa operation fanela sayine ukuthi ngiyavuma ukuthi nangabe sengidinga ingadi by any chance banginikete ngoba maybe usuka ngasakhoni kuvuma leso sikhathi. So we do have those precautions ukuthi vele, because it can happen. Akusiyo ukuthi imvo lengendeke iyendeka.
And I can imagine kuyendeka ukuthi noma ngithi nje, is it possible ukuthi singathi we do have sufficient blood in our banks? I can imagine nyalo usemsebenzini njenganyalo nje, most probably there's someone that is in dire need of blood. It's so much so ukuthi ungacela kwana nathi si Kusile Breakfast Show production crew ukuthi sihambe siyo donate in case one of us is their blood type. Is that the current situational status?
So currently we are struggling. Hospitals are struggling to get enough blood because as the reasons that we've mentioned before. And umgomo wa WHO is that we need to have, for a country as small as ours, there's a certain limit. 1% of the population should have goods as negative, probably about 24,000 units. We haven't reached that, but we are getting towards that. It's just that the collection of blood or the sourcing out of the blood is the one that's delaying. So we do run out, and as we speak, there are people who are needing blood, and we probably sometimes now being at the corner by loyal 1 or 2 units because they are trying to sort of unetisa, yes, and then the new enrollment of relatives to try and get them to donate blood, or even friends. Those drives also try. So the storage, as we said, is not as optimal as by WHO standards.
I think we've had a situation, especially when my sister urgently needed blood donations. Ingadi kusafuna travel from Babane. Ikhani fika shiselweni. Are there interventions, or rather that are in place ekutheni lokho kusombulule, because ngiyakubona kuba linyeva and kakhulu kuba stress, especially to our parents, because as a sibling, my pain can only be so much. But umntali ukhaza ukuthi umntali wakhe akasakhona nekudla nje le ndlu nje sayikhunga fa stress lesine ngoba kunana stress ukuthi okay ingadi siyeva sayikhona, that's we have the hope. But is it arriving on time? What are some of the interventions that were put in place ekutheni nihlangabezele simo lesi?
So you mentioned Ishiselweni, for example. So far we've had 2 major units in Babane Government Hospital, as well as Manzini RFM. So today, or as of this coming week or weekend, they'll be launching a new blood service in Eswatini, Eswatini Government Hospital.
Let's take a moment to clap for that.
So the Minister of Health has worked very hard in trying to get the blood service nearer to the community. So now ngabe useshiselweni nje uniketa utsinga kuniketa ingadi noma utsinga ingadi leto daba setendiwe lokuthi kungabi ukuthi somela ingadi lesembabane noma lingadi lesekamanzini.
Ngikhumbula, I think it was last year around November, ngakuphuma SHIMS 3 report, but since ayenzaba ukuthi kukhona Eswatini say reach 95, which is a milestone, a great milestone. But since I was one of level 95, usho ukuthi kunebantu labathatha le medication lapho khona leligciwane alisekho detectable emzimbeni wabo. Ngiyathi ukuthi labo bantu labo bangakhona yini ukudonate ingadi ngoba khansi bayafuna lokudonate.
So lesifuna sikukhumbule with HIV and ARVs ukuthi ma-ARVs noma la maphilisi ayalithinzibalisa leli gciwane. It's not to say ukuthi alikho, but our machines are not able to detect it. But so because leli gciwane lingena into your DNA, so whether you're on treatment or not, you may still be able to asifuni kufaka abantu labadzinga ingadi at risk. So the recipients, at risk of transmitting those infections, which is why kule questionnaire uyabuzwa ukuthi kudeni ukugula lo ngabe ulashelwa kona lokungendeka kuthathelwana ngengadi. So HIV is one of them, hepatitis B, C, and D, as well as the tifodel. So we do not still encourage that, but we do appreciate what the ART team has done in terms of trying to achieve kuti bantu babe more healthy in terms of taking their ARVs.
I think this one is very important. You do require full honesty.
Yes.
Your I said be detectable where HIV in your system doesn't mean that you can donate. Okay, it's very important. And then age limit, you did mention 16, right?
Yes.
65
years. Okay. 65 years. So nangabe nje umuntu lomdzala or fit or healthy at 65. Some countries do say if because ngalendlela lesi desperate ngayo for blood, umuntu above 65 and is still well enough, has got a recommendation from the doctor to say you are eligible to donate, that one can also be absorbed. But for the country, that limit is still between the age of 16 and 65 years.
Because vele bengifuna nje lokubuta ngoba mina nje ngingumuntu lojimako still. Lechimini I have bangani laba over 65. They are they look as healthy as I am. Labanye bangihlula even in terms of performance lechimini. So benginawo lo mbuto and I'm happy that so vele wa answerisha ngisengakawubuti. Kuna question lenkulu ye frequency ye donate ukuthi njengasifiso nje I think the last time I donated was 2 months ago. Bese ngiyesaba as much as I remember nangidonate bangitshela ukuthi hayi ingadi yakho ikahle kakhulu siyayidzinga iphuma futhi yinengi igcwele la mtimbeni wakho, but ngibese ngiyadibuta ukuthi okay, as much as nayo le selflessness and the humanity aspect of myself iyakhwala ukuthi ibe brought forward, I'm also scared ekutheni yathi ngidakhanza ngidonate kakhulu kwana nami sengidzika ukuthi finze ngingelelwe ingadi. It's in the frequency.
Okay, so it differs with each gender, so male and female, but broadly we say bantu can donate every 3 months because we allow ukuthi longadi nawe lamtimbeni ireplenisheke. So as in ingadi yakho iyakheke ibuyele esimeni sayo. Okay, because lok donator kahle what it just does is ukuthi what you lose immediately maybe is that's the volume, low 450 mils labamkhipako at that time, which can be replenished by just taking fluids immediately within 12 hours. But lokuthi lama blood cells akheke kahle siniketa lo 3 months. For females kuyaye kwehluke kulabanye because sinesatiwa ukuthi we've got lower levels even though they're normal, but some show that they can do it every 4 months. So bonage bangaya 3 times a year, or males can be 4 times a year.
Okay, and then in terms of the fluids that you've just mentioned, which you can take to supplement the replenishing process, I want to assume there are also, certain type of foods that you may want to eat, especially after donating. Such as that.
So it's your normal diet, but if you are a frequent donor, we encourage that even before you be someone who takes food that is rich in iron, so that it just improves your quantity of iron in the body. Because remember, what's ingadi yakhiwa ngema iron cells. So what beat for lokuhlata nje lokunabo iron siyak encourage and beans nyama letine iron learning. And maybe supplements, but not necessarily because very some supplements shows very so anemic. So we are defer to donate. We want you to also continue with taking it even after you've donated. So the fluids usually what you usually take on a daily basis.
So the recommended okay, we're running out of time, Dr. Ngiyafuna kwata, and I think this one is very important. In my blood types, which is the most common one in terms of ekutheni bantu labayidzinga ukuthi nithi sifuna siyidonate. And kuba ngimaphi nankhala sithola ukuthi are.
Okay, so there's someone where we call a universal donor. Nangilokhu kuthiwa O negative. So loyo umuntu lo ngakhona kuniketa noma ngangibani ingadi. Yes, because loyo ude indlela yokuthi noma wena nangunika ingadi A positive unga react.
Hence universal.
Hence universal.
How common is that blood type?
So it's not very common. I may not have the correct statistics, but we do struggle with getting those. But if we do, siyafisa ukubambalela kuwe ukuthi ungasinyamalali because
database ukuthi nibabekise labo nihleni bashayela
yeah, so we have a record of the donors and nalokuthi what type are they donating, as well as kunanaba laba special because the tubulola this year lithi give blood, give plasma, So plasma as well is part of a component yengadi. Then akulokuthiwa futhi ma-platelets, which will also part of ama-blood cells la sita ukuthi umuntu unangabe unenkinga ye-clot lokuthi angakhoni kuma nakableeda. Siyaye bese sesithatha nje kuba nema-specific donors baniketa nje ma-platelets because kunebambu vele labede lawo ma-platelets, and also which is also part of lengadi because blood is divided into three. It's the blood, which is the red cells, the plasma, which is lama proteins nalokulokudzingeka ukuthi uclote, and then bese sekubanga lama platelets. Lesiya so labo sinabo vele nema records ukuthi ngibani uyayasidonate ma platelets sesihle simcheck so khona ku replenish ama stores ethu.
So the most angathini urgent blood noma sithi lemcwa kakhulu angasithi imcwa kakhulu man, but the universal ngiyafollow ukuthi umcwa kakhulu ngoba ukhona kusita everyone.
Yes.
And then lalamanye ama types la khona.
So lamanye ama types ke kuya ngokuthi so ahlukaniswa ngabo A, B or O, and then bese kuhlukaniswa futhi nalokuthi kune resource factor on top of lama blood cells, which is either positive or negative. I must make it clear because bantfu nabeva lokuthi A positive bebavama lokhu bese seba associate with ligciwane. So asisho lokuthi lo A positive noma B positive or B negative akakhulumi ngeligciwane. Khuluma ukuthi nje kulama blood cells kunana nali lokumakha lokusilomvu positive or negative. So kuba na AB, kuba na A, kuba na O, low negative or positive kuto three letinhlobo.
Yeah. So it's give blood, give life, share
give
life.
Plasma.
Give plasma, share life, share often. I think the share often is quite important.
Yes.
The replenishing process. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, your insights.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Dr. Precious Waweru, utakubuyela kujaga emsebenzini nje nyalo kuyo attenda bona labo labatsinga lusito lwengadi emaswati ke ayakhuthadwa njengoba safetile dokotela ukuthi hambe ngawo le theme ukuthi give blood, give plasma, share life, share often. Sibahlola at market nasibuya wrap up the show.
Welcome back. It's 1 minute before 8 o'clock. Sasifika phethele nehlelo lethu lamuhla. Thank you so much for joining us. Sasema ukuthi namuhla you'll do the right thing uhamba uyodonate ngengadi yakho njengoba umhlaba wonke ukubhala ilanga le World Blood Donor Day. Kubalekile ukuthi uyade ke ne blood type yakho ukuthi blood type bani kumgcoka nje ukuthi what is
in case ubona nawe utawuthi ngakudonatela utawati usitele bantu ukuthi laba type band back donated. Lulu, you did beat me in terms of outfitting a red wako. We've come to the end of the program. Thank you for staying with us.